He said, "Take it, Phil, it's free money."
What you thought was one type of investment is a completely different investment altogether.
It was marketed as something very different than what it was.
I know of no other individuals who have been so violated so heinously as this group of people.
The biggest investment bankers in the country were dishonest, totally dishonest.
We're talking about the major financial institutions whose commercials you see on television every night.
It is the most audacious, outlandish scandal and theft that Wall Street ever thought it could get away with.
2008 marked one of the biggest financial scandals in U.S. history. Yet somehow, in the midst of all the other financial failures, this one went virtually unnoticed.
We've experienced significant turmoil in our financial markets in the last few days.
Consumer confidence plunges to its lowest level in 16 years.
The financial system permitted a scale of risk-taking that has caused grave damage to the lives of so many Americans.
In 2008, brokers were selling a no-lose money market type of investment, telling clients it was just like holding cash. When the overall market crashed, these investors, and we're talking tens of thousands, were left out in the cold. In fact, their accounts were frozen to the tune of $330 billion. So while these bad investments didn't attract the same national media attention as the mortgage crisis, one securities regulator from North Carolina decided it was time to make investors in her state whole. If you haven't heard of the ARS crisis, it's time you did.
When the market rate for auction rate securities froze in February of 2008, most folks didn't really know particularly what had happened. Because auction rate securities was a phrase that was not used a lot in connection with all of the financial commentary that was going on. And a lot of people that held positions in auction rate securities didn't know that that's what the whole concept was called.
Originally, the product was created to provide a viable alternative to securities or money market funds. What makes them auction rate securities is that the interest rate or the dividend rate that these securities pay is set regularly and periodically at an auction called for that process.
In the beginning, investors had to come in with $250,000 in order to participate in this market. As the market started to show cracks and fissures here, there, and elsewhere, the Wall Street geniuses decided to allow the little guy to come in. And the little guy could come in for $25,000 a pop. Those are the so-called retail investors.
These securities, these auction rate securities, were promoted, sold, distributed as cash-type instruments. Money market alternatives, cash instruments. Little did investors know, though, that there was this massive tail risk.
Around February of 2008, all of the auctions that gave these products their liquidity came to a screeching halt, and that is called an auction failure.
See, it was the continuation of these auctions that was the key here. The auctions were held weekly, and investors, big and small, were buying and selling. The problem started when there wasn't enough demand to support these auctions, so the big brokerage firms stepped in and artificially created enough demand to keep the auctions rolling. So they'd submit their own bids just to prop up the market, and it all worked beautifully until it didn't. Finally, in February 2008, right before the mortgage crisis hit, these brokerage firms pulled the plug on their own auction rate securities, and that's when the market froze, and along with it, that $330 billion of investors' money.
The auction rate securities scandal was without a doubt the biggest bond scandal in modern history. I know everybody thinks Bernie Madoff is the biggest thief since Jesse James. He wasn't. $68 billion. That's Bernie Madoff. I'm talking about $336 billion, okay? This is an institutional crime. This isn't some little con man.